Five Nights at Freddy's. It came out last night. If you were able to catch it at the theater, or if you just had Peacock streaming, we were given the gift of being able to watch Five Nights at Freddy's from the your own home. And I had planned originally to watch it at the theater. I had everything set up. I was going to take my kids. It was going to cost me a fortune. And then I got this gift like a week before saying it was going to be at my house. And then we watched it at my house for the low streaming price of $70.99 for
It's $6.99, right?
I don't know what I'm paying, but it feels close to that.
Dude, it is so cheap. I'm not a simp for Peacock here, but I'm gonna say it again. If you can only afford one streaming service, Peacock is the way to go. They have an insanely large library, and they are constantly putting movies out that are in theaters for $6.
Yeah, they're all in on their streaming service. So, I don't know that they're hurting the theater by doing this. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy's has a $20 million budget. So not a huge budget by any means. And by them doing this, I mean, here's the situation. They took me out of the theater, literally. I was going to go watch this movie for certain. They took me out of the theater and I watched it at home. They're willing to double down. They've done this with all of their Halloween movies. They've done it with several different movies over the recent year where you could watch it at the same time on Peacock. They're trying to get people to that streaming service. We'll see whether or not it's successful or not, but seems like it's doing, and we'll see the numbers as we do the box office.
Yeah, I was going to go to the movies too. I was ready to go. And then I saw that it was streaming on Peacock, and they advertise it like very well. It's pretty. I have no issue with Peacock. But I do think that they could have made a lot of money with this movie. They didn't have to go on Peacock first.
I don't think they did either. But let's go into it a little bit. Five Nights at Freddy's. A troubled security guard begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. During his first night on the job, he realizes that the night shift won't be so easy to get through. Pretty soon, he will unveil what actually happened at Freddy's. It's rated PG-13 at 1 hour and 50 minutes. And as I said, the film has a budget of $20 million. And of course, Five Nights at Freddy's is based on a very, very popular game, the game franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's. Which I recall coming out probably around, 2014, 2015. It was a mobile game on the phone. I just happen to have children that are in this age demographic. My oldest child, who's now 24, used to play this game on his phone. And over the years, it's built up into, you can play it on all of the different gaming devices. Even now, you can play it on the Oculus Quest. And what I do know about this game is that it terrifies children, because of the jump scares, and it's a pretty frightening game. I've never played it, but I've watched my kids play it, and they're scared when they're playing it. So
I learned about it from Matt Pat, Film Theory, and
who was in this movie, by the way?
Who was in this movie, which I thought was awesome.
Which was great. As a YouTuber, we always support YouTubers getting into the movies.
Good for him, man. And good for him.
Played a waiter.
He played a waiter. Good for him for not. Also, he didn't blow it, because he returned back to the franchise to do a theory right when this was announced, and he could have right then said he was in it. He never did, and he could have blown the entire movie because he had already seen it, but he didn't. I'm very happy for him. Also, it's a Blumhouse movie, which it's funny because I remember watching it and thinking toward the end, well, this feels like a Blumhouse movie. And then, lo and behold, it is a Blumhouse movie.
It was actually, I got to tell you, I'll get into it here, but essentially Five Nights at Freddy's, I thought they did a really good job of setting the scene. So I think all of the production work on it, it really did give you the feel. A lot of effort went into it. The decorations and the animatronics are excellently done. It's Henson's Muppet creatures who made the animatronics.
That's awesome. I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah, you do feel like you're in a 1980s leftover Chuck E. Cheese restaurant when you're watching this.
100%. Yeah, and it's super creepy. There are a couple shots where the camera's focused on the character, but then in the back you see like some yellow figure moving past a mirror or whatever.
Right.
That's pretty well done. And my wife was watching with me, completely missed it. I saw the stuff in the background. it looks really good. The setting is really good. I do like the animatronics a lot. And I'm surprised they didn't. I'm not surprised. I'm happily surprised that they used animatronics and not, CGI or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, they used. Well, they didn't use animatronics. Actually, they used their Muppets,
Puppets, right?
puppets, I guess you would call them.
But they look like animatronics.
They do. They did a good job making them look like animatronics. Being familiar with the game, let's talk a little bit about Josh Hutcherson, who plays the main character here. He's the security guard. Last time we saw Josh Hutcherson for real was the Hunger Games. He was, of course, one of the main characters in the Hunger Games. And I got to tell you, that movie came out in 2012. It's been 11 years, and he doesn't look like he's aged a day, man. I mean, this guy still looks young. And to play a role where he's basically a young adult and he's taking care of his young sister, which I thought was interesting. This guy's in his mid to late 30s now, and he really pulled off like an early 20s character here pretty well, I would say. And Josh is, he's a talented actor. I thought that the movie really went deep into the lore, and my kids are all about the lore. And so I'm kind of conflicted about this movie. On the one hand, I really felt like it should have been an R-rated movie.
Yeah, it should have been.
My son, who's 24, was initially introduced to Five Nights at Freddy's, and he can go watch this movie. In fact, all three of my adult children could go watch this movie, an R-rated film. But at the same time, I got to say, during this movie, I had really meaningful conversations with my 10-year-old about the game and the backstory. He was interested, he was excited, and we haven't had much conversation about things. And so it was nice to be able to talk to him because it was PG-13 and he was young enough to be able to watch it with me. So there's this kind of weird dichotomy on the movie probably would have been better as an R, but I really did have a better family experience because it was PG-13.
That's probably why it was PG-13.
Well, no, it was PG-13 because it's going to make the most money.
Oh, yeah.
And
makes sense.
There are a lot of kids who like Five Nights at Freddy's, and a rated R film would have knocked them out.
Right.
But in order to stay true to the game, and to the people who played the game, you would have needed it to be terrifying. And I did not find this movie terrifying in the least. It was not scary. You had the momentary in the beginning. You got the monitors going off. It is very much like the game in the very beginning, where you're not exactly sure, you're this security guard who's supposed to survive the night, right? It's 5 nights. Each night you're at Freddy's, it gets a little harder to survive the night, and you have to use your flashlight. And there's a whole thing about the game. And they gave some sort of honor to the game a little bit by showing all the different things, but they didn't really take you down the terrifying lane. You get the initial security guard who gets killed at the opening credits, so you can see kind of what it's about. But when Josh Hutcherson comes in and takes over, there's this different dichotomy happening because there's a whole backstory where when he was a child, his brother was abducted in front of him, and he's having this reoccurring nightmare since he was young, essentially trying to kind of deal with it. He still thinks that he should be able to recognize the person who took his brother when he was little, but he's still dealing with the demons from that. Right. And he notices when he gets this job, which, by the way, the job was given. This is actually pretty cool. The job was given to him by Scream
Lillard.
legend.
Yeah.
Right. Did you notice that? Right. Did you notice the
Matthew Lillard?
The Matthew Lillard was the character.
Yeah. From he was also in Scooby-Doo.
From Scooby-Doo, but from Scream is where he got his first thing. And the first thing I noticed from Matthew was how old he was. And then I looked in the mirror and said, "Oh shit! Oh yeah, we are old."
I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, Matthew Lillard, yes. And I'm like, oh no,
right?
What happened, bro? Wait a minute.
Wait.
Right.
Yeah, we were all young when the first one came out. But anyways, so that was kind of a nice little thing there. And I think maybe you show your hand when you put a guy like that in the movie. But they did want to go into the lore of the film. And I think one of the problems with the movie, while we have this interesting storyline which goes into the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, it felt like it probably should have been a second movie. So the first movie, and maybe the studio wasn't going to give him more than one movie, although if you'd let the damn thing stay at the theater, you probably would have made plenty of money in order to
Mhm.
have a second movie, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But if you would have stuck to the terrifyingness, if you would have made it more like a Chucky, or more like a scary as shit first movie, where you're terrified of these animatronics, instead of making them making you have sympathy for them, and like have this entire storyline where they're sympathetic characters. No, you're supposed to be terrified of them. And then you bring this storyline into the second movie.
Right.
This really should have been a second movie storyline. The first one should have been all about how terrifying it is to be there. And we slowly learn little bits and pieces about the backstory, and then leave us hanging at a point to where we get the second movie, which actually delves deeply into what was an interesting backstory. And if you've watched any of the YouTube videos that talk about it, there is a very interesting, franchise here. There's an interesting universe that's been created around this game, I would say. What do you think?
No, I agree. The first thing I thought when it ended was, wow, I mean, there's no way to make a second movie. Like this,
you could, but it's going to be what? It's going to be derivative.
This feels like the last movie already. This feels like,
Yeah.
like you already buttoned this up, and you definitely could have gotten 2 movies out of this. And I'm not someone who says like, oh, just do a sequel to a sequel, but like, there's a lot of lore here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could have had the, that first security guard that gets murdered. There was a lot more lore you could have shown us about how they operate and why. So maybe set up the first one with a security guard that's literally just trying to survive the 5 nights he has there, and have him uncover certain pieces of what's happening as he goes, and then now we already fully understand what's happening with the animatronics and what they're doing, and then you bring this guy in, and for the second movie, and we don't have to go back to the animatronic storyline. We don't have to understand that anymore. Now, you couldn't have revealed that Matthew Lillard's character was the big bad.
Yeah. We don't want to mix that anyways.
Right. But you could have definitely have shown, the golden bunny or whatever. There could have been something there. But there should have been a terrifying movie, and then the lore wrap up for the second movie.
100%.
And now you really can't have a second movie. If you do have a second movie, what's it going to be? Like, I don't see how you can possibly have a second movie. Like we are no longer afraid of these things because we know what they are, right?
Yeah. There's no terror, and I think that's part of the problem. And I do, when I learned, I didn't know what they were. When I learned the lore on it, I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. That it's actually children or whatever.
Oh, and they're still in there. That was sort of creepy and crazy.
It's super creepy and super crazy, and there needs to be some sort of fear involved. Now there's no fear, and you're right. It would be, to do another movie would be pointless at this point. They've shot their proverbial wad, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lore that they didn't go into. Just to be clear, like, I never played the games, but I have watched Matt Pat's videos because they're entertaining. And
they're going to try to make another movie because, of course, the last famous words were, I always come back.
Right.
And that was, of course, letting you know that. And of course, at the end, you see, of course, the character is still kicking and screaming or whatever. So,
right, as it bites into him or whatever. Yeah, maybe he comes. Maybe he's no longer human now. He's one of the whatever. And see, I didn't understand. I also would like to know how they're still living. There was things that the game would explain, but this didn't have time to explain.
Right. It was already a long enough movie at 1 hour and 50 minutes. They could have had a little bit of a shorter movie, made it a little more terrifying. I do think Josh Hutcherson was the right guy. There are moments where, him and Elizabeth Lyle, who plays the female cop, there's like this desire to find out why the relationship is so strange. When you finally learn what's going on, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. But there's this, kind of mess getting there.
It was weird too. Like when she turned, she knows everything about the place. Right. And she turned on the animatronics, and they started singing, and she was like, "Would you like to dance?" And you're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, there was some weirdness there. There's like, some disconnect, and I think they were trying to do.
She met him 5 minutes ago, and she's already like really into. Like she already sort of she already like feels like we're supposed to like, have they already met? Do we not?
Right. Yeah.
No. That was creepy. Now, and then like it stopped working, so she didn't dance or whatever. But I think maybe they were trying to show her as being like this very broken person too.
I think so. And they had a hard time getting us there. I think Piper Rubio, who plays his little sister Abby.
She did good.
I don't think so at all.
Oh,
I thought she
she
was
did
actually a
good.
terrible little actress. I didn't think she did a good job. I thought they should have found somebody who had a little bit more on-screen charisma. I think any kid could have played that role.
I think she was supposed to be playing like someone who was like maybe autistic or something, because like the teacher was saying how she's having a hard time or whatever. But then at the end,
she's traumatized.
Like, right.
I mean, she's traumatized. She lost her mom. The father apparently couldn't cope. So we didn't really find out what happened to the father, except that he just couldn't cope.
Maybe that's the second movie. Maybe he turns into one of the animatronics. I don't know.
At this point, it's going to all be stupid. I mean, no matter what they do next, it's stupid.
Although I got to be honest, I liked, we don't know actually what happened to this character, but I'm hoping that she got killed.
She did. Yeah, obviously. She did.
I'm really hoping,
and which was satisfying.
Horrible. Yeah.
I mean, the only people who really get killed are the ones that are bad, and which is not what this is about. And I'm not sure that's a little bit of a backstab to gamers, I think, because anybody who's the security guard can be killed. Doesn't matter if you're good or bad. And you end up, pandering. Once again, the studio ends up pandering to an audience. And of course, the only people who really get killed that we see are some bad guys who show up during the daylight, which didn't make any sense. They were trying to get him fired from his job, so they break in when he's not there.
Yeah, that makes no sense. And then when the cop was like, "Someone broke into Freddy's last night." How do you? First off, that was actually a tell, because I'm like, how do you already know this?
Right.
She's a cop. You just hang out at Freddy's. And then the whole point was to make him look bad. But yet they go after he's gone,
right? And so it didn't really.
What was
sense.
The plot? Oh, he maybe he left a door open. No, it clearly showed them breaking in. They didn't leave a door open. They just broke. It made no sense. That just proves that the place needs a 24-hour security guard.
Right. So
they need to double his pay.
Well, and the whole point was that the animatronics come alive at night. That's what the gameplay's about.
Right.
So it was another kind of weird thing. So I would just say overall that it was actually an entertaining movie. I enjoyed watching it. I thought there was enough mystery, even though it was confusing and convoluted. I thought there was enough mystery to keep you intrigued. There's enough surprises as you get to the end to make the movie watchable.
Yeah.
I would not say it's a bad movie. It's worth the cost of popcorn.
I'm discovering like just about every Blumhouse movie, even if it's not good, is watchable. It's entertaining.
It's watchable. Yeah. I just think they missed a huge opportunity to turn this into something super cool and really capture, kind of like Megan did. Megan really captured kind of this new idea for horror. And I think they could have really capitalized on the idea of kids being, taken and kind of, they could have really turned it into something interesting and made it something evil that also later on in future movies became sympathetic, maybe.
Yeah, this kid right here was real creepy though.
He was the best actor probably of all of them.
Jesus.
He was creepy. He had a great smile.
Just imagine getting up to get some milk at night, and you're walking back and this is your kid and he's just standing in the hallway. Like, fuck, Robbie, what the fuck? Get back in the bed.
Actually, he did the best job of probably everybody.